Have you ever lost something so small, its absence makes the room go quiet? A single brass tooth from a larger, secret clockwork that once listened to the stars. We hold that quiet together, we listen. In the hush between tide and lamp, we let our lids grow heavy and our attention narrow to a single glint of bronze caught like a slow fish in a shaft of light. The sound here is long and softened, rope rubbed against oiled wood, a chest settling, the patient sigh of a canvas. We are small and patient with this moment. There is a rhythm to this descent, and you may match it with us. Breathe in as the tide draws near. Hold as the lantern tilts. Exhale as the wreck settles. Feel the inhale widen in your ribs, the brief stillness that follows, the soft letting go. We will use that breath as our measure, a slow hourglass where each grain is salt and time. The scene is not loud. It is the hush of things that have been kept too long, the slow turning of a wheel that insists on being counted, the soft clink of teeth that once fit so precisely that they seemed meant to remember, not merely to measure. Imagine a crate, long waterlogged and wrapped in tar, its linen frayed like an old hand. Imagine the faint pattern of water on its lid, the way silt makes small, patient rivers in its grain. The crate rocks with a small, inevitable motion. Beneath its seams, something waits with the soft patience of buried instruments. We are companions at the lip of that small sleep. Our voices are low, our curiosity is patient. We will not pry with the clumsy hands of spectacle, but will lift, like midwives, with gentle insistence. You may feel, now, the weight of your limbs as if you were reclining on a bench at the prow. You may let your shoulders soften and the back of your neck unspool. Let the mouth make no shape for a little while. Let words thin to the texture of tied silk. There is a light that catches one tooth of metal, a single honeyed reflection that moves slowly across bronze like a small moon. That glint is our first clue and our lullaby. We set a lamp near the crate, and the lamplight trembles as if remembering a star. The air smells faintly of iron and salt and the old, enclosing warmth of leather. Sound is filtered by water time. Consonants arrive as if through a pane. Vowels hang heavy and warm. We choose not to begin with the names of scholars or with the clatter of dates. One might suppose those facts will come, like driftwood. They will arrive in small, polite pieces, ledger ticks, a map's corner, a notation rubbed almost away. For now, we hold the sensation that something precise and delicate once lived here. A thing with teeth and a memory of cycles and the quiet patience of a mechanism that kept the sky company. Our approach is tactile. We imagine the first hand to touch the bronze, how it hesitates, how it recognizes the smoothness of a filed surface, the tiny, deliberate chips at the gear's edge. We let that hand be ours, in part, and we feel the cool metal under our palm as if we were children again, discovering a box in a closet. The curiosity is old and soft. Pause with us a moment. Let the room around you narrow to the sound of your own breath and the distant, imagined lap of the sea. We will take another small lantern and lift the tar, as if lifting a veil from a small altar. There will be no sudden revelation here, only quiet, patient noticing. We move together, breath by breath. We begin, as careful storytellers do, with the hush of a morning that feels more like memory than a map. In a harbor the size of a child's bowl, boats lean like sleep-tired beasts, their ropes breathing with the tide, and merchants arrange amphorae whose mouths still keep the damp of the sea. We stand on a quay that smells of fish and cedar. Our fingers taste salt as if dipped in a pocket of ocean. There is a rhythm here, an oar tapping a measured beat, a vendor's soft call, the slow slap of a loose plank. We breathe with that rhythm. We move, with slow curiosity, along an oak avenue that leads from harbor to houses that lean into their own shadows. Leaves riffle like paper, The road is dusted with salt, and the tread of sandals makes small, deliberate notes. We hear cartwheels, a smith's distant thud, children chasing a stray kite that moves like a pale sail. One might suppose the trees have kept a ledger of seasons. A scholar would smile at the neatness of their rings. At a hearth within a low house, the air is warm with bread and resin, and the family speaks in low, well-worn voices. We imagine the clink of a spoon, the slow stirring of porridge, the hush when an elder traces a bright that on a star chart, as if naming an old friend. We see a hand making tiny, reverent circles on a tabletop map. What would such careful hands make with time and curiosity? Farther out, a tidal plain unfolds where land remembers the sea. Reeds whisper and footprints make small, temporary scripts in wet sand. Here, people read swells as calendars. Children learn that the moon is a modest clock and tides are letters written each day on the shore. We feel, perhaps, the same pulse in our chests when we watch water come and go. The slow, inevitable return, the quiet leaving. It is a curious fact that communities keep knowledge in habit as much as in books. Workshops sit back from the road, where bronze sings under patient hammers. In one, a metalworker bends over a bench lit by oil. Filings gather like tiny, obedient snow. We imagine calipers that breathe with use, punches that leave sensible scars, a vise that knows exact pressure. The tapping might be a lullaby. One might suppose some objects were made to be useful. One might also suspect some were made to be companionable. We take up a map, folded and rubbed, its margins burned by lamps and fingers. The map smells of vellum and old oil. It lists harbors and headlands, names that are more memory than geography. The notation is practical and fond. A scholar, noticing the ink's unevenness, will suggest long voyages and salt-lashed pages, and a captain who records small consolations. There is a quiet wonder in all of this, a sustained line that runs through chores and festivals alike. We look at the harbor now and see not only goods but shared risk and solace. The Oak Avenue is a place where time buffers new and old. The hearth is a slow archive of ritual. The tidal plain as an education in patience. Why does this matter for our small gear? Because such a device would be at home among these textures, an instrument folded into daily life, as ordinary and as essential as a knife or a ladle. We bring attention to sound, as if listening beneath the obvious. The creak of a mast, the muffled footfall on a wooden floor, the soft scrape of a stylus across clay. These are the sounds that make life audible. They teach us knowledge is practice, not only parchment. Feel the coolness beneath our feet, as if stepping onto a quay. Let shoulders loosen and the jaw unclench, moving our awareness inward like a tide. There are small economies of gesture, hands folding a letter, a nod between neighbors, a child's quiet bow, gestures that keep a place kind. At the quay, someone oils a pulley, the thumb tracing a groove until the metal gleams. We watch and our own hands unclench. We notice festivals that are patient, a boat deck strung with linen, a woman tapping a thin drum, a boy offering dates with a shy smile. These are not spectacles, but daily care. Continuity is stitched from little acts. Instruments are stitched into such lives. A dial as familiar as a spoon, a gear as trusted as a night lantern. We feel that private logic in our ribs, breathe in, and sense a quiet tether to useful things. The device we will meet is not alien, but a member of this household of practice. We carry these scenes with us into the water. We bend closer to the wreck as if proximity could translate into knowing. The sea keeps details the way a slow reader keeps sentences. Folded, sometimes omitted, always remembered in part. We see the hull at a slant, ribs splayed like the hands of a sleeping thing, and we breathe as if making room for what the water will offer. A crate slips from shadow into our lamplight. Its lid is split and swollen, and through the gap a single, dark tooth of bronze asserts itself like a hesitant promise. The first thought is practical and fond. There is rust, there is wood, there is rope, there are amphorae half buried in silt. Then we let imagination do its work, but gently. Perhaps the crate traveled from port to port. Perhaps it was a cargo of instruments meant for a scholar or a ship's officer who kept his charts close. One might suppose the owner wrapped the mechanism in cloth, tied it with a cord, placed it near the stern beneath a hatch where it would stay dry by habit, if not by sense. Here, we alternate between small, domestic moments and broader conjectures. Consider 3 quiet theories, each plausible and each shaded by human habit. First, the patient return. The ship intended only a short voyage, a familiar route, and the crate was to be unpacked that evening. A dinner left half-eaten, a cup cooled beside it. We imagine the cup. The ring of tea settled at the bottom, a faint smell of herb if such memory could linger. Second, the sudden inlet, a misreckoning at night, a seam that shifted under a slow weight, a subtle sluice of water finding a new pocket where the hull would take on whispering pressure and do the patient work of undoing. Third, human slow undoing, a seam widened over seasons, the steady neglect of a lash untied at dusk, a small economy of inattention that, in time, lets the sea take what it will. Each of these theories is not a drama, but a weather, soft, inevitable, and plausible. Intercut with these conjectures are intimate losses that feel like soft, private sutures to the imagination. A half-finished meal on a cabin table, an apron hung by a peg that did not return to its hook, a child's shoe left on deck as if stepping off and not returning. Each of these is a hush that gives weight to the possibility of objects becoming orphaned at sea. We let the image of an abandoned loaf anchor the scene. We can almost feel its crust give to the pressure of our recall. Our dive is patient. We imagine a diver's torch approaching the crate in a slow, airtight orbit. Light slants across bronze and catches on edges that have been softened by salt. We feel the cool of the beam at the nape of our neck as if the lamp were a careful hand. Our breathing slows to match its sweep. The first fragments are not dramatic. They are the size of careful work. A wheel, a shard of gear, a strip of edge with teeth filed so precisely that they seem to have been cut for a conversation rather than for crude measurement. We make the moment tactile. The bronze is pitted but not rude. Its patina is a map of time, a thin green hush that tells us where salt met metal and then waited. We imagine running a finger along the tooth and feeling the small, deliberate curve where a craftsman shaped a notch, perhaps to fit another small tooth. The clink is muted, the sound of metal on metal softened, as if by wool. There is scale here. These parts are small enough to fit the palm, intricate enough to demand respect. Then the wreck yields a private interior, an inner chamber of the ship where things once meant to be sheltered were kept. We drift into the captain's cabin, or perhaps a small hold lined with chest and cordage. Water filters through, muffling sound and lending a hush like felt. In this dim room we find a smaller box, nested, sealed with a flange whose bronze has bloomed green. We work as if with slow reverence to open it. The lid yields with a soft, salt-softened creak. Inside, resting on a scrap of oilcloth, is a cluster of gears, a pointer, a fragment of a scale, and, beside them, a small carved object that is the sort of thing not explained by engineering. The object is humble, a tiny wooden horse, worked with a child's blunt knife, the grain worn smooth by fingers. The horse is not explained by engineering, yet it explains more than designs do. It is intimate and ordinary, a child's small object that insists life was being lived even as instruments were being packed. We imagine a child pressing the toy to a face, or a sailor tucking it away for luck. The juxtaposition of complex bronze and simple wood is a quiet kindness, a reminder that human hands make both the precise and the beloved. We cup the horse in our imagined palm and feel the grain like weathered skin, the tiny chip where a corner was knocked away by play or accident, the remaining burnish where it was clasped in prayer or in routine. This chamber moment reframes the mystery. We are not faced only with parts and theory, but with people who held these things. Our scholars' aside whispers that artifacts are less a ledger of intent than a chorus of private choices. We listen to that chorus, and in it we hear the soft decisions that tether instruments to ritual and to a household's hum. It is a curious fact that we read a device differently when a child's toy leans against it. We return to the small evidence, a spiral gear with teeth spaced like distant steps, a pointer that once marked lunar passages, a fragment of scale still etched with near-invisible numerals. We let the mind equate those marks not with abstract mastery, but with the slow craft of someone who checked calendars and tides before a voyage, who counted festivals and harvest cycles, who kept time so a community might know when to plant and when to pray. The mechanics remain gentle companions rather than distant curiosities. Our narrative pauses like the diver's torch doing a careful sweep. We imagine the process of retrieval, a net catching an ancient weight, hands that lift with the tenderness of salvage, the patient cataloging on a ship's deck where each item is wrapped in cloth and placed upon a bench to be noted. Sound here is small, a pen touching paper, the low murmur of voices making hypotheses that the night will fold into silence. Theories will be voiced and later debated, but for now we keep the hush. We let one last ambiguous image stay with us. The crate, once lifted, rocking slightly in the small pool of a new lantern's light. A scholar's hand hovering before it, the carved horse nestling quietly against the hard bronze like a memory that will not be lost. We feel our shoulders soften, our breathing steadies. We carry these small images with us like slow lanterns into sleep every night. We drift now from the close, crate-lit hush into wider rooms of the world that held such a device. The air changes gently, smells widen from leather and salt to the sweep of markets, where wine-sweet breezes carry the sigh of figs and the memory of smoke. We stand at the fringe of a square, and it is possible to hear an entire economy in the instruments of daily life. The gentle bell of a merchant calling his stall, the slow scrape of a potter's wheel, the distant chant from a temple that leans into a dusk we imagine as slow and generous. We move with a calm curiosity down lanes that twist like kept chords, each alley a story of exchange. We see amphories stacked like patient columns, their clay faces marked by hands who measured oil by eye and reckoned time by habit. We hear the footfalls on packed earth, we hear the leather of sandals flex, and we hear the very small sounds of tools in use. A file kissing bronze, a rasp drawing a soft note from wood. It is a curious fact that the sound of wheels being filed is itself a kind of counting, an embodied arithmetic that teaches the hand how long to stay, how lightly to pressure, how to trust the slow metronome of repetition. There are workshops tucked under eaves where metal sings under hammer and file. We imagine a bench lit by a single oil lamp. Filings gather like tiny constellations at the craftsman's elbow. The air tastes faintly of coal and resin. The hands in that light move in practiced loops, measuring, pausing, measuring again. We see the careful marks where a gear tooth was eased into form, where a craftsman judged the angle by pressing the pad of a thumb to the metal and listening. The making is quiet ritual more than industry, and its motions could be imagined as a prayer rendered in small forgivings of steel. Astronomy lives among these rooms like a kindly elder. We are shown not a cold chart, but a conversation between sky and habit. Lantern-lit alignments that tell of festivals, of planting, and of pilgrimage. We imagine a small observatory, or simply a roof at dusk, where an elder traces a boat-shaped constellation with a finger and names it for a story that helps a child sleep. One might suppose that instruments such as ours were used both for precise reckoning and for teaching gentle, necessary rhythms. The sky is a book one reads with both hand and affection. Merchants crossed these spaces carrying not only amphorae and cloth, but stories and small technologies. We follow one who travels the same arc as the device might have taken, port to port, barter to barter, an exchange of methods folded into leaves of paper and into small coins. There is a soft commerce in ideas, a metallurgist teaching a new alloy to a shipwright, an astrologer showing a captain a way to mark the solstice, a craftsman demonstrating a filing trick that saves a dozen hours. We feel the trust in such exchanges, the slow accretion of practical kindness, the way knowledge moves by hands and voices as much as by ink. In religious spaces, the device's kin might be doubled as instrument and as ritual object. We imagine a temple where the priests time a slow ceremony by the passage of a shadow across a dial, where bronze nods in votive light. There is no sense of cold reason here, but of a practiced intimacy. Clocks as companions of liturgy, gears that mark the hours of lament and of feast. The scholar will remind us that precision need not be alien to the sacred. Indeed, some communities found comfort in measured time because it made ritual reliable and therefore consoling. Consider, too, the sea as teacher and judge. In coastal houses, nets are mended with the same rhythmic patience one uses when calibrating a scale. A captain may consult a disk before leaving harbor, not as pure calculation, but as a gesture of readiness, a way of aligning intention to tide. We feel a kinship here. The device is useful and human. It is a tool folded into the texture of care. The sea asks for humility. The machine lends a small, steady answer that is neither boast nor oracle. We should dwell a little on language and notation. How those who kept records preferred small, legible marks so that others could pick up a ledger and know where they were. A measurement is a promise to the next hand. One might suppose that the numerals and scales etched onto brass were as much a social device as a mechanical one, a way of saying, "I made this for you. Use it well." We feel the tenderness in that thought because it converts cunning into community, and it asks us to see cleverness as an act of care. There are small, human images we carry from these rooms. A child being shown how to read a shadow by a careful hand. A woman smoothing a map with the heel of her palm after a long voyage. A scholar sniffing ink and smiling in the recognition that knowledge is as much rehearsal as discovery. Such images insist that the Antikythera's complexity was not an isolated marvel, but part of a fabric where craft, ritual, and habit braid together. We keep these images like a slow chorus, and they cushion our curiosity so it does not jolt us awake. We pause to attend to sound, the long note of a struck bowl, the measured tapping of a stylus, the muted echo of a footstep in a high-ceilinged hall. These are the acoustic signatures of a community, patterns of listening that teach bodies to move in time together. We may let our own breath mirror that pattern. Slow in, long pause, patient release. Allow shoulders to fall with that breath. This is the small bodily work the past asks of us, to remember with calm. The world that made the machine teaches us how to listen before we reckon. We offer a scholar's aside. There are roads we cannot walk without conjecture, and conjecture is a kind of respect when it is tethered to texture. We do not presume to solve, we suggest with modesty. The evidence asks for imagination tempered by restraint. We find, in that tension, the quiet pleasure of wise curiosity. The letters of maps and the soft notations on scales teach us that people kept time not to conquer it, but to live within its shape, to attend to seasons, to synchronize bread and prayer. As we move from the square and its workshops to the low rooms that face the sea, we carry with us a sense of the device as domestic artifact. It belongs to hands, to routines, to the liturgy of meals and festivals. The image of a small dial, resting by a hearth, its face darkened by smoke and use, is no less moving than a grander tableau of invention. We keep returning to this domestic insistence because it soothes. Complex things can be companionable. A gear can be as ordinary as a spoon when it has been handled enough times. We imagine festival nights where the device's counting becomes choreography rather than calculation. Processions step in time that shadows on a dial somehow teach. A drummer takes the small increments and turns them into a steady cadence that helps a whole town breathe as one. We hear the soft rustle of robes and the measured footfall on flagstones. We feel the communal pulse that a machine could help tune. Is it not gentle to imagine instruments being used to synchronize joy as readily as to measure duty? Think too of navigation. How a captain might consult a small dial and then look up to confirm a star he has loved since childhood. The tool does not banish wonder, it coexists with it. We sense the same tenderness in both acts, the pointing of a finger to a bright detail and the watching, together, as the needle finds its place. There is a quiet, stubborn humility in these practices, an acknowledgement that the sea keeps its own counsel and that our instruments are courteous requests rather than demands. We also follow the slow commerce of repair. A cracked gear is passed to a neighbor whose family has long known the temper of bronze. A missing tooth becomes an occasion for sitting together and rehearsing the old filing tricks by lamplight. These repairs are social affairs, small congregations of skill, where knowledge is transmitted in syllables of practice rather than in loud pronouncements. We feel the warmth of such gatherings, as if the lamplight itself were softening the edges of time, and we understand that mending is a way of keeping history in motion. At times we allow ourselves to listen to silence itself, the long hush that gathers when a bell is muffled and a town sits in a particular kind of waiting. Such silence is not absence but attention. It shapes the way people inhabit days and prayer. We learn from those pauses more than from any single inscription. We tuck these sounds into our pockets like small tokens and carry them like ballast for the long watching that history requires. We carry these scenes with us as ballast. They settle softly in our chest and keep our hands familiar. We treat the gears as if they were stories told in metal. Each tooth is a sentence, each wheel a paragraph in a slow and patient book. Listen as though the bronze is reading to us, a soft susurration of intent, an old voice that breathes between clicks and holds its phrases like a promise. There is a tenderness in that movement, and we are careful readers. Imagine a wheel turned by a thumb, not by a motor but by the habit of a hand. The motion is deliberate and measured. It is the same measure a baker uses to fold dough, the same count a mother uses to rock a child. We feel the rhythm in our ribs. We match our breathing to the small, circular logic, and the body learns to slow. Gears are companions here. They do not shout their function but keep a steady watch. One wheel may measure the moon's slow passage, another the cycle of years, another the bend of seasons. They speak in intervals that are comfortingly human-sized. We do not chase mechanical precision for its own sake. We note how these intervals became ways to convene a town, to call a festival, to align planting with a tide. Think of teeth as small promises, precise not because they boast, but because they allow trust. A missing tooth is a quiet absence, not catastrophic but intimate, like a missing button on a coat. We attend to the small absence and find in it an argument for care rather than for wonder. The device teaches stewardship by example. We speak of function and plainness, a pointer that arcs like a patient arm, dials that mark the slow return of a constellation, an arrangement of wheels that, when they breathe together, describe cycles of the heavens and of harvest. Yet we frame these as human acts, counting for company, timing for prayer, measuring to anchor festivals. The mechanical thus becomes domestic. Hear the soft click that comes when two teeth meet. It is like a small footfall in a hallway late at night, unexpected but not alarming. We feel it in the jaw, in the fingertips. We imagine a maker listening for that sound and nodding. There is a private music in the mechanism, a lullaby of calibrated intervals. Consider the workmanship, filing that tooth until it becomes a particular curve, heating and cooling metal until it learns a temper that will not complain, polishing a face until numerals show like faint moons. These are manual prayers. We honor them not by cataloging every technique, but by listening to their result, the deep, slow, measured speech of bronze. Metaphor helps us rest here. The gear is garden, the notch is seedbed, the rotation as the patient season of sowing and reaping. A gardener tends in repetition and in small correctives. So did the maker. There is solace in this likeness. To compare turning metal to tending earth is to turn toward what is known. We pause to imagine a repair. A neighbor brings an eye for filing, a lamp is lit, and hands bend over a wheel in the warm hush of evening. There is conversation, no hurry, a shared measuring in the soft light. Jokes might be passed, a cup of wine lent, a thumb resting to judge a curve. Repair is a social ritual, and in it knowledge is shared like bread. We notice surface details, tiny notches that catch the eye, a faint inscription worn by repeated contact, a scale that still whispers numbers where once a pointer rested. These details are not simply functional. They are marks of use and affection. We do not need to understand the arithmetic to feel the humanness of the object. It is also soothing to imagine the mechanism in stillness. Wheels nested like sleeping instruments, pointers resting, their tasks fulfilled for the night. The sound palette here is small, a sigh of metal settling, a distant murmur of currents, the soft scrape of cloth as a conservator wraps a fragment. We let these sounds cushion our own slowing pulse. There is a way the object asks to be spoken of, with humility and with attention to the small acts that make meaning. We avoid technical parade and instead dwell on the tactile. This gear, this tooth, this little mark that indicates care. These are the things that keep us awake with curiosity and send us slowly into rest when we contemplate them kindly. We may indulge, for a moment, a scholar's whispered aside. The mechanism's arrangement implies an understanding of cyclical time that is richer than a mere calendar. Yet any assertion benefits from modesty. We hold hypotheses like fragile shells, admire them, but do not clap them too loudly. Speculation is a companionable act when it is careful and soft. Let us return to the hands, an artisan pressing a wheel's edge, feeling the exact give, an apprentice listening and learning the language of the metal. We imagine fingers that recognize a curve by touch and memory, an eye that sees not only form but intention. These living techniques are the true archive. We notice surface details, tiny notches that catch the eye, a faint inscription worn by repeated contact, a scale that still whispers numbers where once a pointer rested. These details are not simply functional. They are marks of use and affection. We do not need to understand the arithmetic to feel the humanness of the object. It is also soothing to imagine the mechanism in stillness. Wheels nested like sleeping instruments, pointers resting, their tasks fulfilled for the night. The sound palette here is small, a sigh of metal settling, a distant murmur of currents, the soft scrape of cloth as a conservator wraps a fragment. We let these sounds cushion our own slowing pulse. There is a way the object asks to be spoken of, with humility and with attention to the small acts that make meaning. We avoid technical parade and instead dwell on the tactile. This gear, this tooth, this little mark that indicates care. These are the things that keep us awake with curiosity and send us slowly into rest when we contemplate them kindly. We may indulge, for a moment, a scholar's whispered aside. The mechanism's arrangement implies an understanding of cyclical time that is richer than a mere calendar. Yet any assertion benefits from modesty. We hold hypotheses like fragile shells, admire them, but do not clap them too loudly. Speculation is a companionable act when it is careful and soft. Let us return to the hands. An artisan pressing a wheel's edge, feeling the exact give. An apprentice listening and learning the language of the metal. We imagine fingers that recognize a curve by touch and memory, an eye that sees not only form but intention. These living techniques are the true archive. As we describe motion, notice the body cues. Our own thumbs might flex, the sternum ease, the back of the neck release as if a knot had been unlooped. Invite that release now. Breathe in slowly through the nose and let the belly soften on the outbreath. The mechanism's circularity eases the mind. Repetition becomes refuge. We imagine the device set upon a shelf by a window where blue-green light spills across its face. Dust settles in the grooves like a patient map of seasons. The room is silent enough that the ticking would be a sacrament, a measured testimony to quiet work. We might lean closer, without needing to name each part, simply to be near that steady cadence. There is a comfort in proximity. Small objects teach grand patience. And finally, we imagine the listener's own rhythm syncing with these small sounds. The click, the faint scrape, the long, contented pause between counts. We let that sync become a gentle anchor. Inhale with the first tiny click, hold as the wheel completes its turn, exhale as the next space arrives. In this way, the machine becomes a guide, not to calculation, but to calm. We let the metal's measured patience sit against our chest, a small warm weight. We breathe with it and feel the day loosen its grip. We are gentled and doze as will remembers. We tell this portion as if rocking in a long, slow cradle, not with sudden gusts but with patient, domestic motions that make space for memory. The ship that bore the crate did not go down like a storybook tragedy. It folded into the sea as a conversation grows quiet, a seam unstitched, a latch undone, a rope eased at dusk. Imagine the hull as a tired thing that finally stopped breathing. Imagine hands who had tasks to finish and bread to share, and a lantern blown low. The manifest, if there ever was a tidy list, reads now like a sketch. Amphory with oil, crates of cloth, a small collection of instruments packed with the care of someone who loved ordering things into boxes. There might have been a captain who checked the stars by habit, and a crew who sang low songs to keep their hands steady. Think not of heroic arcs, but of routine. A thumb tracing a rope's fray, a woman tucking a child's toy into a chest, a sailor blotting a map edge with a thumb. Evening falls with softness rather than drama. Lanterns are stubbed low because the day is already tired. A shared bread is broken, spoons pass like small boats, and conversation drops to the seam of practical talk. Where to shelter, which coves are safe, what currents to trust. These are the conversations that stitch a small community. We feel in our jaw the slackening that follows a meal. Allow your shoulders to drop as if you had just set down a long task. Small mischance compounds quietly. A lash left half secured, a knot that loosens in a breeze, a hatch that swells in salt so it will not seat when pressed. Water is patient. It does not hurry, but it knows how to use the smallest opening. The sea waits for the night, and then, as if reading a slow page, it enters where a seam is slack, and, over hours rather than in a single storm, it makes its seat. We do not dramatize. We learn how neglect and habit allow loss. Consider paths the ship might have taken. A coastal hop between familiar ports, a detour to aid a neighbor, a hold shortened by generosity. A current may shift subtly, an inlet may form, a sandbank may be cut away by seasonal tide. One might suppose such changes are small until they have rearranged a route forever. These are the soft geographies of exit. Imagine, in middling light, a sailor noticing a new slant in the horizon and setting a course. Imagine a hand marking the slow progress on a table map with a blunt stylus. These are acts of navigation. modest work of staying home. We place our hand upon our chest now and feel the measured beat there, matching the modest rhythms of course correction and small decisions. When the hull begins to take on water, it is not an orchestra of calamity, but a chorus of small noises. The soft groan of timbers, the patient gurgle at a seam, the quiet thump of a barrel shifting. Hands move with practiced calm, bailing, tightening, resecuring, speaking in clipped measures that are more habit than panic. We imagine a lamp passed lower to inspect a swamped board, a finger tracing an amphora's rim to see if it still holds a seal. Each action is careful and human. Human consolations persist, a song hummed to steady hands, a small joke to displace fear, a sailor pressing a child's toy to his breast and remembering a home he might see again. These intimacies make the loss tender rather than merely tragic. They make objects companions worth salvaging in memory. Allow your fingers to relax now, one by one. Feel the loosening as if a knot inside your hand unwinds. Sometimes misfortune is a quiet inevitability, a slow leak that cannot be stemmed, a plank that gives with patience, a tide that seals a misaligned board. If the ship was lost in that way, then the crate with its instruments sank with all the other domestic things, a lesson in mortality and in the stubborn resilience of objects that remain useful even as owners fold away. We breathe with that and let the lungs soften. We imagine a captain acting with modest, humane attention, organizing what can be saved, wrapping delicate pieces in cloth, instructing a neighbor to take a remaining jug. There is no vainglory here. There is the competence of people doing the right small things as they can. Picture hands moving with care and lamplight, throwing soft shadows that make the deck feel like a small stage where dignity is practiced. There are plausible afterlives for such a wreck. Currents move cargo, nets later snag heavy pieces, centuries pass, and items become coral-laced islands of objects on the seabed. The crate may have been torn open slowly, an amphora breaking, a gear loosening and rolling into crevices where silt keeps them warm like a blanket. It is a curious fact that the sea both hides and preserves with equal thrift. We notice, too, the choreography of currents, a slow, courteous sequence that nudges heavy things into hollows, rolls lighter fragments along shelves, and lets some items rest in pockets of silt like small, sleeping animals. When divers later work, they move like careful gardeners, sweeping with gloved hands, coaxing a gear free rather than yanking it, noting a tiny inscription and whispering a date as if it were a secret. We hear the soft zip of a bag, the tap of a gloved finger on a label, the low murmur of colleagues making small acknowledgments. There is a private ceremony in recording, names given to fragments, cloth folded over brass, a small salute before objects travel toward daylight. We take a quieter, modern image, later divers descending into the green-blue dark with lamps and careful hands. The beam finds the hull at an angle, worm-eaten boards give, and a diver feels the gentle give of a small box. There is tenderness in that retrieval, motions that mirror the ship's domesticity. Lift, wrap, catalog, breathe. We may feel a small tightening in the chest that eases as the breath goes out. Before the crate reached scientific hands, there were hands on deck that made humane decisions. Who to pull first, which instruments to secure, which bread to save. The story of loss is not only mischance, but also what is chosen to be preserved when choices must be made. We imagine one person tucking the device into a scrap of sail as if protecting a friend, then stepping back when the sea takes the rest. So the wreck becomes a careful sediment of human life, an accumulation of domestic choices salted and softened by water. We fold these images close, like a map, and use them to carry us forward, not as a stark lesson, but as a gentle companion on the way towards sleep. We imagine the maker's hands as a kind of slow liturgy. They arrive at the bench each evening with pockets of small, patient things, wire, charcoal, a set of calipers dulled by use. The lamp is low, the air warm with filings and oil, and the room holds the soft hum of attention. We place our palm at the imagined edge of that bench and feel the residual heat as if the work had just paused. Breathe in with us and notice the small looseness behind the shoulders. The workshop is intimate. A bench scarred by projects, a pegboard of tools that look like domestic saints, a bowl where water cools a quench. One might suppose the makers kept implements like cherished pets, naming edges and knowing their temper. The sound here is measured, metal kissed by file, a rasping that is almost like speech. The maker listens as much as measures. They file by feel. Apprenticeship begins with touch. The elder lays the pad of a thumb to a newly cut gear and says nothing, and the apprentice learns the language of give and resistance. We are put in mind of that quiet pedagogy, fingers learning to read a curve the way eyes learn to read a face. Feel your fingertips relax as you imagine the patient repetition of filing, the small rhythm that teaches the body to wait. The maker is not a solitary genius, but part of a small community. Someone brings a tempering recipe in exchange for bread, another trades a polishing cloth for a favor. These economies are domestic, exchanges that smell of rosemary and soot. We imagine lamplit evenings where hands pass tools and stories across a bench, where laughter is a muted bell and instruction a gentle undertow. Present tense glimpses steady time. They file, they listen, they mark, they test a wheel against a scale and suspend the piece to see how it swings. Perhaps a neighbor's child sleeps on a mat and wakes to the sound of small clicks that will later be described as invention. This proximity to daily life is comforting. The artifact is embedded in routine, not conjured by solitude. Attention to detail is ritual. A notch is checked twice, a tooth eased until it fits its mate with the shy satisfaction of two hands in prayer. There is humility in these acts. Precision is not pursued for acclaim, but to honor a practice. Let that humility register as a soft descent in the chest. Tools have voices. The mallet's thump, the file's fine rasp, the whisper of cloth over metal. The maker knows which sound indicates fault and which signals correct temper. This auditory literacy passes from hand to hand. Let the jaw unclench as you imagine hearing that chorus at a distance, your pulse matching its cadences. We are gently speculative about identity. Perhaps the maker learned in a temple or by the sea, watching ships and measuring stars. Perhaps a woman taught an apprentice the geometry of shadows on a sundial. Perhaps a copperworker's son learned to temper by folding his knees under a bench. These modest stories bind us better to the object than any single biography could. There is a domestic mythology around such hands, talismans, superstitions, a ritual tapping of a newly finished wheel. We imagine the maker pressing a thumb to a gear's face and saying a small blessing, or chewing a blade of grass to steady a hand. Tiny acts humanize technique. Allow your shoulders to drop now. Feel the subtle ease of muscles surrendering. Touch teaches care. The maker learns to wrap delicate parts in oiled cloth for transport, to pack teeth away from abrasion, to mark a fragile pointer with a sliver of wax so it will not be lost. These are archives in practice, methods that protect memory and steady patience. When we think of preservation, we picture museums, but the first conservators were the hands that wrapped and trusted a neighbor. We imagine the sound of a late-night calibration, a wheel held to a scale, the finger marking a tiny scratch, a breath held and released. There is minimal spectacle. The work proceeds like a stanza recited softly. One might say the maker's craft is a poem in metal, a practice that marries the tactile and the temporal. Feel that cadence as it lulls the mind. Speculative biography supplies intimacy. The maker's small failings are as kind as their successes, the misfiled tooth that taught a trick, the lamp blown by a gust that led to an accidental polish. These are human corrections, not footnotes to genius. We accept such histories because they make the object feel like kin. Finally, we touch on tenderness between maker and community. When a device is entrusted to a vessel, hands that made it may have clasped it with a sigh and a blessing. Such gestures explain why some instruments travel and others do not. We breathe with that thought and let our own hands rest as testimony to small acts of care. We leave the bench with a bookmark of sound. Rasp, small tap, the sigh as a file is set aside. Let those noises fold into the quieter rhythm of your breath. Inhale on the rasp, hold through the tap, exhale on. Finally, we touch on tenderness between maker and community. When a device is entrusted to a vessel, hands that made it may have clasped it with a sigh and a blessing. Such gestures explain why some instruments travel and others do not. We breathe with that thought and let our own hands rest as testimony to small acts of care. We leave the bench with a bookmark of sound. Rasp, small tap, the sigh as a file is set aside. Let those noises fold into the quieter rhythm of your breath. Inhale on the rasp, hold through the tap, exhale on the sigh. Finally, we touch on tenderness between maker and community. When a device is entrusted to a vessel, hands that made it may have clasped it with a sigh and a blessing. Such gestures explain why some instruments travel and others do not. We breathe with that thought and let our own hands rest as testimony to small acts of care. We leave the bench with a bookmark of sound. Rasp, small tap, the sigh as a file is set aside. Let those noises fold into the quieter rhythm of your breath. Inhale on the rasp, hold through the tap, exhale on the sigh. We drift now, gently, as though the workshop door has been left ajar and the evening air carries us outward, toward the harbor where a bell marks the hour in a tone softened by salt. It rings once, and the sound does not so much travel as settle, like silt through blue-green water. We listen as if from beneath the surface, where every note is rounded and kind. We remember how bronze changes its mind over time. Fresh from the file it gleams, almost sun-warm. Left to sea breath and patient air it turns, slowly, into a green that resembles quiet hills after rain. This is not decay, but conversation. Copper speaking with salt, metal consenting to memory. We imagine the gears resting in darkness, their surfaces furred with a soft patina, as though the sea had laid a cool hand upon them. We listen to a shell held near the ear, not because it contains the ocean, as children are sometimes told, but because it remembers shape. The hollow curve gathers distant murmurs and returns them altered, intimate. So too the device gathered the sky's wide motions and returned them in miniature, a cosmos cupped in the palm. Let your palm rest open now. Feel its warmth, its quiet receptivity. We sit on a stone quay at dusk. Ropes creak. A child traces constellations with a sticky finger on a fogged amphora, inventing patterns that sailors will later confirm. We see, we hear, we feel, the small democracy of knowledge. How an elder points to the rising star and says its name, and a younger voice repeats it, softer. Repetition is the first instrument. Memory is a gear that turns by being touched again and again. We remember tides. We remember how the moon leans upon water and water leans back. We remember how harbors breathe in ships and breathe them out. It is a curious fact that even the most intricate mechanism bows to these simple rhythms. The Antikythera fragments, though delicate, were loyal to cycles. They honored return, they honored recurrence. Allow your breathing to follow that example. In and out, as faithful as the tide. A tangent arrives like driftwood and we welcome it. Why does bronze turn green? Because the world insists on touching it. Because air is not empty, and salt is not silent. Because time prefers to write in soft ink. These are gentle truths, safe to hold at night. They do not demand solution, they offer companionship. We wander to a market where figs are piled like small planets, and wine breathes in clay. The maker's neighbor counts coins with a thumb worn smooth. The count itself is a rhythm, a private metronome. We listen to the soft arithmetic of daily life and consider how numbers, too, can be lullabies. One might suppose that the first astronomers were also the first careful shopkeepers, measuring both stars and olives with equal tenderness. We remember a harbor town's lullaby. It is not sung loudly. It hums beneath speech, beneath barter, beneath the scrape of a chair on stone. The tune repeats. The tune returns. The tune forgives forgetfulness by offering itself again. So does the device. It turns, it marks, it begins anew. We rest inside that pattern. Another digression carries us inland to a courtyard where a bowl of water mirrors a slice of sky. A hand disturbs the surface and constellations tremble. How easily vastness is altered by touch. Yet when the hand withdraws, the stars reassemble themselves, patient and composed. We are put in mind of scholarship itself. Questions ripple, answers settle, the sky remains. We listen to bells again, not as summons, but as reassurance. A bell in fog does not scold, it consoles. It says, here is the harbor, here is the edge, here is the safe return. The machine, in its small bronze heart, offered such assurances to those who listened. Festivals would come, eclipses would pass, seasons would keep their appointments. We sit, we listen, we remember. The phrases become a low tide inside the chest. Let your shoulders sink a little further into their cradle. Let your jaw soften. The world is wide, and yet it fits inside a wheel no larger than your hand. A final wandering thought. Hands keep time by repetition. A baker kneads, a sailor coils rope, a scholar turns a page. Each act is a modest orbit. We remember, we listen, we sit, and in that sitting we are joined to centuries of patient motion. The sea keeps some stories, yes, but it returns their rhythms to us in other forms. The bell fades. The shell quiets. The tide continues. We enter now a quieter chamber, not of stone, but of thought. A room where lamplight pools upon polished tables, and the murmur of scholars rises and falls like a restrained tide. Pages turn with a sound softer than wings. A quill makes its patient pilgrimage across paper. We are among them, though no one looks up. This is a fellowship of listening. It is a courteous conversation, this debate about the little bronze cosmos. One voice suggests an origin in Rhodes. Another inclines toward Alexandria. A third, with a smile almost audible, proposes a workshop we have not yet named. There is no quarrel in the air, only the gentle friction of ideas testing one another like smooth stones in a pocket. We feel the grain of the table beneath our resting hands. The wood is warm from lamps that have burned low through many evenings. One might suppose that certainty is a kind of brightness, but here the light is deliberately dimmed. It allows subtleties to appear. A missing inscription is weighed, a tooth count is compared, a date is nudged forward by a decade and then, with equal grace, drawn back again. We listen to the language of care. Perhaps, someone says. It may be that, another replies. These phrases are not evasions. They are cushions. They make space for the unknown to sit comfortably among us. We are put in mind of a veranda at dusk where neighbors exchange views on the weather. No one insists, and yet all are invested. A diagram is unrolled. The faint crackle of vellum echoes like a shoreline underfoot. We trace the circles with our eyes, though we are told that the circles may not mean what we once assumed. The device might have been a teacher's companion, a ritual calendar, a navigator's quiet aid. Each possibility is set upon the table like a small bowl. We peer into them without haste. Outside this imagined room, the sea continues its long conversation with rock. Inside, the scholars continue theirs with time. There is comfort in the symmetry. Both labors are patient. Both accept revision. We feel our breathing slow to match the cadence of this exchange. It is a curious fact that disagreement, when conducted with gentleness, becomes a kind of harmony. One voice leans forward, another leans back, Together they form an arc, a human dial marking the hours of inquiry. No one rushes to solve the mystery outright. The unanswered question is not a wound, but a window left slightly open. We consider how knowledge grows, not as a sudden tower, but as a terrace built stone by stone. A fragment is cleaned. An X-ray reveals hidden gears. A new imaging technique whispers of inscriptions too faint for the naked eye. Each addition is modest. Each correction is welcomed. We are invited to admire the method as much as the conclusion. Feel the chair supporting you. Feel the weight of your own thoughts settling like dust motes in lamplight. Uncertainty here is not cold. It is a blanket drawn up to the chin, permitting us to rest without having to declare a final answer. In the end, the room does not erupt in applause or resolution. It exhales. Papers are stacked. A pen is capped. The scholars depart one by one, their footsteps soft as receding waves. We remain a moment longer, grateful for a mystery that has chosen to be companion rather than adversary. The lamp dims. The murmur fades. The question stays, but it stays kindly. We turn inward now, as twilight thins to that soft blue which feels almost like a held breath, and we ask, quietly, what this small bronze constellation has stirred within us. The sea has kept it. The scholars have tended it. And we, listening in the hush of evening, have carried it for a while in the warm cup of our thoughts. There is, perhaps, a small mourning here. Not sharp, not loud, only the tender ache reserved for things misplaced by time. We think of the ship, of hands that fastened a crate with care, of a deck that once held steady under familiar stars. Those lives moved forward without knowing they would be remembered through fragments. We feel that humility settle like silt along the floor of our own remembering. And yet there is wonder, gentle, persistent wonder, that human fingers could cut such precise teeth into yielding bronze, that minds attuned to tides and markets also listened for eclipses and solstices. It reminds us that ingenuity need not be loud to endure. A small wheel may outlast a palace. A quiet idea may travel farther than a shouted decree. Place your hand lightly over your heart for a moment. Notice its steady rhythm. The device was, in its way, another heart, marking intervals, counting returns, pacing the sky's slow breathing. We are put in mind of how we, too, measure our days, by meals shared, by lamps lit, by the turning of pages at night. There is companionship in this continuity. We are not alone beneath the vast dark ocean of history. Others have stood at the edge of water and wondered what the heavens meant. Others have built instruments to make the unknown feel nearer, kinder. We feel their presence not as ghosts, but as neighbors across centuries, patient and undemanding. Why do we tell such stories at night? Perhaps because darkness softens outlines and lets connections glow more clearly. In the hush, we can stitch a thread from ancient harbor to modern room, from bronze gear to the pulse beneath our palm. The act of telling becomes a small lamp, held low and warm. The Antikythera fragments do not shout their secrets. They offer them as murmurs. They ask us to lean closer, to breathe slower, to accept that not all mysteries require conquest. Some are meant to accompany us, like a warmed stone carried in a pocket, smooth from repeated touch. Feel your shoulders sink. Feel the weight of the day loosening. Mourning and wonder are not opposites here. They are twin currents, moving in the same direction. We grieve what was lost to water, and we rejoice that water preserved enough to remind us who we have always been. Makers, watchers, keepers of rhythm. The twilight deepens. The bronze glints once more in memory, and we remain together in that gentle glow, neither solved nor stranded, simply held. We gather the threads now, not to knot them tightly, but to lay them side by side. The ship, the maker, the scholars, the sea, and watch how they rest together when no one pulls too hard. The tide has slowed. The lamp burns lower. Even the imagined ticking of bronze seems to soften, as though it understands that night has come. The crate settles on the seabed once more in our mind's eye. Silt drifts down in a fine, patient snowfall. It covers nothing in haste, it only tucks. We see the brass glint dim beneath a veil of blue-green quiet, and we feel the hush of pressure that preserves rather than crushes. Some stories are not erased by depth, they are cradled by it. We return to the maker's bench. The file rests where it was set down. A curl of metal lies like a silver comma upon the wood. One might suppose that the work ended abruptly, yet perhaps it did not end at all. It merely continued elsewhere, in other hands, in other rooms. Craft does not vanish, it diffuses. We return to the scholar's table. Papers stacked, diagrams rolled, a pen laid gently across the margin of a page. Their labor, too, is ongoing. Each generation adds a thin sheet of insight, translucent and careful. There is no final proclamation here, no triumphant unveiling. Only the steady, companionable act of returning to the question. And we return to ourselves. Feel the surface beneath you. Notice the way your breathing has grown slower, rounder. The device has become less an object and more a rhythm, something that hums beneath thought. We are satisfied not because every gear is explained, but because we have sat with it long enough to feel its weight and warmth. It is a curious comfort to let a mystery remain partly veiled. We keep the image of a small wheel turning in darkness. We keep the sound of a harbor bell softened by fog. We keep the scent of oil and salt braided together. And we let go of the need to see the whole mechanism at once. Imagine now the gears coming gently to rest. Not broken, not silenced, only paused. The faint tick evens out and dissolves into the wider hush, like music heard through a thick wall. The sea resumes its long breathing above them. The stars continue their patient arcs, whether watched or not. We draw the blanket of night a little higher. The brass glint that opened our journey returns, smaller now, a memory rather than a beacon. The chart's edge curls softly at the corner of our thoughts. Each motif has found its place, like objects tidied on a bedside table. What may we keep? We may keep the sense that human hands, across centuries, have reached toward pattern and meaning with tenderness. We may keep the assurance that loss is not always annihilation. Sometimes it is transformation. And what may we release? The precise date, the final theory, the neat conclusion that would close the lid too firmly. The Antikythera machine rests in its quiet chamber of history, neither clamoring nor fading. We have visited it as one visits a friend, not to interrogate, but to sit and share the same room. That is enough. Feel your eyelids grow heavier. Feel the sea's cool palms smoothing the surface of your thoughts. The threads lie still. The lights are lowered. And we, content and unhurried, allow the story to fold itself gently around us. We take one last, unhurried walk together, along the quiet shoreline of our imagining, where the crate rests in its blue-green chamber and the tide moves above it like a long, patient breath. Nothing calls for us now. Nothing demands explanation. The sea keeps its counsel, and we are content to let it. The brass gear, once caught in a stray beam of dawn, no longer glints sharply. It glows instead in memory, a softened ember beneath layers of time. We see it as though through water, edges blurred, light diffused. The image does not fade, it simply becomes gentle. We pass again by the scholar's desk. A notebook closes with a sound scarcely louder than a sigh. The lamp is turned low. A page, half filled with careful script, waits without impatience. Knowledge, like tide, can pause without ceasing. We feel that permission settle in our own thoughts. We pass the maker's bench. The tools are at rest. A cloth has been laid over the small, intricate frame. Dust motes drift through lamplight like slow constellations. The room is warm, and in that warmth the labor of hands lingers, not as urgency, but as reassurance. Let us return to our bodies now. Feel the steady rise and fall beneath your ribs. Feel the weight of your limbs supported and safe. We match our breathing to the tide we have followed all this while. In and out, slow as water folding over sand. The ship that bore the device sails once more in our thoughts, not toward wreckage but toward horizon. Its lantern dims, yet the glow remains in the mind's harbor. We do not watch it vanish. We allow it to become part of the wide, dark blue. Some stories are meant to be kept, some are meant to be carried, and some are meant to be returned to the deep. Tonight, we return this one gently, as one might place a cherished stone back into a stream, trusting the current. We remember the bell. We remember the tide. We remember the quiet turning of a hidden wheel. We remember the bell. We remember the tide. We remember the quiet turning of a hidden wheel. We remember the bell. We remember the tide. We remember the quiet turning of a hidden wheel. The phrases grow softer each time, until they are scarcely more than breath itself. The sea breathes. The night breathes. We breathe. And in that shared rhythm, thought loosens its hold. The crate rests. The lamp is lowered. The gear is still. The crate rests. The lamp is lowered. The gear is still. The crate rests. The lamp is lowered. The gear is still. Silence gathers like a blanket drawn gently to the chin. The tide recedes into a hush so faint it can no longer be distinguished from your own breathing. We have traveled far and learned softly. Now we rest. Sleep comes like silt settling. Sleep comes like a tide turning. Sleep comes like a wheel that will turn again tomorrow. And we, together, let the sea keep watch.